So, next up, Mycelium and the Future of Open Social by co-founder Taco Potze.
Thank you, Jamila. Well done. I think you were born for this, Jamila. We'll have definitely more summits. Am I in the right spot? Sound is working. This connect at the table?
Yeah.
I was told to stand still because usually I'm all over the place. There we go. So, yeah, we just wanted to take you on a little bit of a why we're here, how do we get here journey. But as you see, 15 years is a long time. And if we split it up, 7 years of the agency, almost 7 years as a SaaS company, you have to think what happens in the next 7 years, where we're at and where do we want to go. But I want to take it a bit further, so really put out a vision where I want to take the company in the next 7 years. But it's a big, hairy, audacious vision. So we need support in order to get there. We need your input during the social events today if you think this is a good idea, because you're actually the first people outside the company that I'm pitching this idea to. If you think it's rubbish, tell me as well. We're Dutch. We can handle it quite well. Afterwards, Morris is going to take it a bit down to earth and tell you what we're doing right now with Open Social and where we want to take it this and next year. But keep in mind, this is a big picture. But I'll take you on a bit of a journey. So in 2017, as you saw, Ewan was our first client, and we thought at the time everybody can just build a successful community. We'll just give you the technology, and it will run itself. We had some lessons to learn there, because what we learned was that even though people like the control and the flexibility that an open social platform gives, we also see that some platforms are quite successful into running their community, building, extending, engaging, and other communities are not getting to that level. And of course, that makes us very sad because we don't want to work and put all our time and money in there, and our clients putting time and money and effort in there, and that the community is not successful. So we've been thinking a lot, what is the mechanisms of what makes communities tick, and what can we do in order to improve this over time? And what can we do in the next 7 years in order to improve this? This is something that most of you in the community space probably know, right? There's 90% of your community is quite passive, just consuming information. 9% is maybe participating, commenting, reacting on things. And then this is 1% of your community that is really creating content. So what that means, it means like a community of 1,000 people, 10 people are creating content, and they're driving the thought leadership and driving engagement. And very often these 10 people are working, for your organizations. But what if this 10 drops to 5, What happens to your community? But what would happen if this can be increased to 20 or 30 people creating content? The dynamic shifts radically. So we want to see at what makes this tick. So what we've seen in our community is that engagement, keeping your community engaged, making sure people come back to the platform, respond to things, it's the #1 challenge. And it's not just when we talk to clients. This is a industry report of CMX. They researched last year 778 community professionals. And every year, the #1 challenge is engagement. Quantifying the value of the community, dealing with manual efforts. Also, Moritz will talk a bit more about that. But I want to address the first one, consistently engaging members. And last week, a new report came out. And guess what? #1, difficulty to consistently engage members. So year after year after year, the same problem arises when we look at private communities. And that should make you wonder, if there's a problem that somehow is not being solved, we might have to think a bit out of the box. So when I look at myself, when I want to post something online, when I want to create community, I have very little time, we're all very busy, and I have a lot of options. I open my phone, there's tons of apps. Where am I going to post this content? There's LinkedIn, there's Instagram, there's an open social platform, there's Facebook, there's Twitter until last week when I removed my Twitter account. So what do? Well, I do what everybody does. I take the path of least resistance. What is the easiest way? What gives me most return and gives me most impact? And what is impact? Well, it's R&R. Reach. How many people do I reach with my message? How many people see my message? And what are the reactions? If I post something and nobody comments on it or nobody likes on it, I'm not too happy. But if I reach a lot of people, I see a lot of people are seeing my tweets or my messages, and I get a lot of responses, this is great. I'll do it again and again and again. And who's best in doing this, reach and reactions? Well, it's these companies, the dopamine-driven, social networks, Instagram, Facebook. We've all known how addictive these apps can be. And what did they do really well? Well, go back a little bit in time. When we started the company, they made a decision, Facebook, and we might not even notice, but before Facebook was only friends. When you post something, only the people you were connected to were seeing this. But in 2009, they made a change, and they made sure that your content could be shown to everyone. So your content could travel through the network. And that was crazy, and Facebook took off after this and built the biggest social network in the world right now. And of course, because they're a commercial company, they were monetizing this. Say, hey, you want to get your message in front of your followers, in front of your volunteers, in front of your community, you have to pay us to get your messages to your community. And they've been doing this ever since. The network effect made sure that the Cambridge Analytica scandal, only 270,000 people use this app, and they downloaded the information of 87 million of our people. We've known the hearings, we know what's happening at Facebook. Do they care? No. So they're quite successful. They don't care about these rules. They're going to keep doing this. So what are we going to do as an alternative to counter this? Because Facebook is not going to stop doing it. And actually, we are not going to stop using it. Because I deleted my Facebook account a few years ago. Maybe some of you did as well. But they're still growing. 3 billion people active using the platform. It's mind-blowing. So we cannot really let go of this. Why? Reach, reactions. They're still doing a great job at this. But for us, when we have a open social platform and people go outside of the platforms, they're posting in different platforms, it has an effect on our platforms. Because we see it as creators, if this drops, people are not going to come back, there's no fresh content, there's no engagement. So when the next time they go to the platform and they don't see fresh content, they might not come back. And this is a problem. And we as organizations are doing a very good job with community management, posting, keeping people engaged. And this is essential for communities. We have to keep doing that. What we also need is user-generated content. So I've been thinking about this for years. Like, what do? We don't want to go into the direction of Facebook. We want to stray of the openness, the transparency, open source, open standards, making sure that we are there for you building out your institutions and organizations. But we also want to make sure that our platforms are successful and that we finally, attack this engagement problem that we're seeing everywhere. So here it comes. We think it's time to put the humanity and relationships and authenticity back into social networks. Privacy over selling data to advertisers. Healthy conversations instead of putting outrage out there. When I deleted my Twitter account because I saw I was getting more and more inflammatory content. And I started responding to this. And I felt really bad every time I was on Twitter. And I was like, okay, this is not going to go well. My normal friends that I used to have on Twitter, I didn't see their posts anymore. I just got people from out of my network that said outrageous things. And I was responding to it because it triggered me. Is it healthy? No. I deleted my Twitter account because of this. But we also see that these tech companies, they're taking out all the power. And Facebook will just pay off this fine and keep doing it. They will not change anything. So we know that a different model to this is decentralized, like where it's not about one tech company taking all the data, but it's where all the organizations and institutions and volunteer organizations, that they still own the data and that they building out their organizations and their network in a decentralized way. Also, these networks often don't have any purpose. I think LinkedIn might be one of the social networks that has a purpose. It's about work, it's about that. And you see immediately that changes the conversations. We don't have this crazy flame wars on LinkedIn because the network has purpose. But a Facebook or an Instagram or a TikTok, they're just all over the place. They're dopamine driven. So what is our role in this as Open Social? How can we help our clients? How can we help the world become a better place? And how can we build something that's sustainable in that way? So here's the pitch. As you know, we have many communities. You saw some of the logos. We're launching every week new communities, but they're all fragmented. So they're private, but that means that they're also siloed. There's no connections between these communities. Even though there might be in the same space, they might have the same goals, they might have the same purpose, we're not really benefiting from what one organization is doing from the other one. And even worse, if I post something in one network, the reach is very limited. It's limited to that specific network. And I showed you a community of 1,000 people, but we also have clients that have a community of 100 people. It's very difficult to get your message out there if the community is quite small. They're not talking to each other. So wouldn't it be great if our communities also had these advantages of, say, a Facebook? You know, communities that thrive because you can create your audience, you can create a reach of your messaging, you can create collaboration from one platform to the next, and the information spreads quite fast and quite far. So we think, okay, how can we have the benefits of this without having the downsides? And we think in 4 steps we can get there. So step 1 is that we want to double down as Open Social on communities with purpose. We have been doing this for a long time, but we like to work with organizations that are mission-driven, that are purpose-driven, that have clear goals, and we want to keep doing that. So around citizens, health, volunteering, most of you here in that space. We also think that right now the biggest challenges in the world are around sustainability, about inequality and climate change. We'll call this the public good. You know, there's also social inequality and things like that, health. We'll call it the public good. So the communities that we'll build and keep building, they will all evolve around public good. Next step is that our content in the communities need a common denominator, a tagging system or a taxonomy system to tag them, to tag blogs and discussions, events, etc. This needs to be understood by a global audience. So one of the thoughts we have is around the SDGs. I know there's pros and cons to this, we can debate this, but say you tag your content with an SDG. I post something on climate change, I post something on life on land. We tag the content, and we know that AI is quite good, you know, to do this automated. This means all the content in the platforms are now tagged in the same way. Here comes the big step. What we now can do is if you are writing about climate change in your community and there's an event, we can show this event in another community and say, hey, we think there's an event that might be very interesting for you. Why don't you, sign up for this event? Or here's some great content that gets a lot of traction in the Greenpeace community. Why don't you, interact with this piece of content? We can do this on page. We can also do this through notifications. Say, hey, we think this might be a great article for you, or might be a great blog for you, or might be a great event for you. It's important to target this very right, and of course it's very important to keep the privacy of the users in mind. But if we connect these, information can flow much more free throughout all these platforms. So what we're building in that sense is a decentralized social network. It's still a social network, but it's decentralized. Everybody still has their own platform. But if I'm going to a community that's quite small, let's say there's 100 people in there, and there might not be fresh content, this time I'm going there, I see content from the wider network. So it's a much more richer experience. I like this platform, the content is tailored, the content is excited, I can engage with it. So next time I'll keep coming to this platform, whether it's small, whether it's big, it's a much more rich experience. But what is key to this is that each community just remains what it is today. So each community remains a unique and open platform just as it is today. In that sense, we're not removing anything, privacy is the same, we're just adding the opportunity to share content throughout the network. And I'll show you how that visually look. And Moritz will tell you a bit more about our plans for the community experience platform. So what does it mean for my end user? It means if I post something in community X, I can also get reactions from community Y and Z. I get bigger reach from my IDs, I get more reactions, I get more engagement. I like it, so next time I'll post it again in this platform. So in this way, I'm not going to go to Facebook to post something about climate change where people are just going to hate me. But I actually know where to put it in my safe environment that is moderated, that I'm a member of or I'm a community member of, Content can still have this network effect, can even go viral, but we don't have the toxicity. We don't need to have a flame war, negative content. Why? Because we're not depending on ads. All these problems in the social media platforms are because they're trained on ads. They need as much eyeballs on the content as possible to sell ads, and that's why their AIs are trained for you to get engaged, whether that's positive or negative. We don't have this because we're not selling ads. Each of the partners in the network already contributes to the network. We don't have this, so we don't have this issue. The working name for this decentralized network is called Mycelium. So Mycelium is this underground network that works with mushrooms and trees and other things. So the mushrooms or the tree, it's still a tree, it's still healthy, but on the ground is this big network where information, nutrient is shared with each other, strengthening the network. So they live in symbiosis with each other. It's not that one is killing the other. No, everybody exists, but we are connecting them. Not visible, on the ground. So how could this look like? And we've been brainstorming about this internally. Important is that you as an organization are in full control. If you want to create a small network just between your open social platforms or some partner networks, that's fine. You just select those. But you can also say, hey, we are very interested in climate change or in peace and justice. We want to create a sub-community of communities around that. So as a site manager, you're in full control. You don't want to connect to the network? Fine. You want to connect on specific topics? Also fine. You want to create your private network? Also fine. Also important is that as a user, you decide what to share in a network next. Do I want to have my content public? That's good. I want to share it on Mycelium? Also fine. Do I want to share it in my community only or only with the user roles that I know? This is great as well. So the end user is in charge of where their content goes. And visually, it could look like this. You can share a post on Mycelium. We see something about climate change that is traveling through the Mycelium network, through your own open social installation. So you're getting more reactions, more responses, and we're seeing as well very visually that content is either from the platform or from Mycelium. Love to get your input on this. We'll have many more discussions around these things. We want to do this in a private and safe way that's also in line with GDPR. I cannot just take a piece of content from one community without authorization, send this information, send the username, send the first name, last name to another platform. A, it's not nice for the user because they don't know where the content ends up, and B, it's against GDPR rules. And we don't have 1.2 billion laying around to pay this off. So what we're going to do, and we'll not get into too technical details, but if you want to, Alexander is here. What we'll do is we'll make copies of the data that we'll share from one platform to the next. So it's not that we own the data. If you send information to the Mycelium network, a copy of that data will be spread around. That also means that if you revoke your access, that copy will be removed on all the open social installations. In this way, we're GDPR proof, and you also remain in control over what happens with your information and your data. Can talk a lot more about this in details today. But what is important in the end, what is the main benefits? It is the reach of content that your users post in the network. It will not just stay in your community, it will travel farther, so they get more reach, they get more engagement on their posts. So we're amplifying messages. So our idea today is to present to you Mycelium, the social network for public good. We are very ambitious in this. If we want to make a big impact, we'd like to have 100 million active users. We really want to be a social network that competes on this. But we want to compete on the public good. You know, there's LinkedIn for work, there's Instagram for your holiday pictures, there's Facebook for cat pictures. I don't know what people do on Facebook. And there's Twitter if you want to be outraged these days. But why is there no community that is really around equality, around climate change, etc.? Why don't we have an alternative to these big social networks that is decentralized, that is in line with what we want? Some people from the US said, oh, this sounds like a left platform. It's like, okay, well, fine. There's Truth Social and all kinds of Parler. And so what's the answer from, liberals on this? Is this ambitious? Yes. People that we talk to, they love it. They're like, okay, but you need to think of this. Yeah, I like it, because at least they're enthusiastic, they're thinking along with us. And there's 100 things that we need to solve in order to do this. But, we've been told this before. We started our company in 2008, 2 months before the global financial crisis. And people said, this is the worst time to start your company, it will never succeed. Well, we're still here. But we cannot do this alone. We need, ideas, we need your input, we need some funding, we need some proof of concepts to see if this works. I know many of you here have already networks that we can test this out. Can we share content between platforms? How does it work? How does it work on privacy? How does it boost engagement? What happens to the reach? How do we do this tagging? So we'll be reaching out to all of you in the next weeks to see if you want to help us to build this proof of concept. And it's going to be a big project, but we're very excited about this. So thank you for this information. I know I've taken the ball really far away. Remember, it was a big, hairy, and audacious vision. We'll take it a bit more back to earth with Moritz talk. But today I'm here, and I'd love to talk to you about this idea. You like it? Great. You don't like it? You have questions? You see some concerns? That's why we're here for. Sharing this in a private setting with people that are friendly for us, but also very ambitious about building their communities, and also understand that we need to do something to increase this engagement. That's my talk, and have a great day. Hope you like this idea. And again, Moritz will take it a bit more down to earth, talk about what we have been doing and what we'll do next this year.
Amazing. Thank you so much.